Manhood, brought to you in part by Lucozade and Solomon's Bespoke.
This is Manhood. Thank you so much for joining us once again as we always aim to be better as brothers. The topic today is fitting in, or more so the desire to fit in. And now this is Manhood, so we're speaking specifically about men and their desire to fit in and how you feel when you're not fitting in. So, it's all about conforming to social circles and the desire to be accepted socially. And those who say they don't want to be accepted and, I don't care what other people think, well, we're about to discuss all of that. Is that actually accurate? So fitting in. To my right, Johan Sayodike, behavior change consultant. To his right, Kevaughn, Lurbz, Savory. To his right, Tsarius, Guichard. Sorry, I didn't say, entertainers, radio hosts. I mean, you guys do so much. And more so, I think you'll fit into, I think you certainly crossed that boundary, but Gen Z. Gen Z is what, 1997 to 2012?
Yeah, I would say about that time.
So 28 years and younger. Lurbz, do him try it.
I'm not trying. No, that's one thing. Yeah. I ain't trying to be young. Yeah. I enjoy my age. They might die.
So part of fitting in is this generation gap that I want to speak about as well. But let's all start off with fitting in, or the desire to fit in.
I think, I don't know if I can speak for everybody, but I think everybody had a desire, or still have sometimes a desire to fit in, right? Because we don't live by ourselves. And I mean, I could relate from young, you grew up, you see, like we used to talk about clothes before. You grew up in secondary school. I remember anytime BT used to come on, right? And I watch music videos. I used to want to put on some of the clothes I see, because I see people patterning it, right? I remember going to different clothes stores because I want to look like certain things and I don't want to be out of style. Those are the days too when clerks come in and you go to school with your sweet brush and things like that. So that is what I saw. I didn't want no regular black shoes. I wanted the clerks. I wanted to be quote unquote like what I was seeing around. Now, the truth is I liked clerks. It's not that I didn't like it and just wanted to fit in, but part of it was still fitting in, being like everybody else.
Well, I started off at BT, so for me that's what was, and what the directors would tell you to wear is what it is. I mean, they're the ones that first shaved my head. I mean, when I was kind of balding, and they decided, hey, that's the look we want, and so it is. But was that fitting in? I suppose.
But I think is fitting in a bad thing? Would you call it? To me, it depends on how you look at it. Fitting in could be a level of motivation, to a sense of you have a goal, you have a certain look. Same thing with fashion, you have somebody you look up to, and you could class it as fitting in, but it could be like I aspire, in a sense, to be like I have a certain image that aligns with that viewpoint of whatever it is, and you set your benchmark. I want to go on that level. So you could, to me, it's a fine line when you come and say fitting in. It all depends on how the person views it as really fitting in. Is it fitting into is a follow culture, or is it fitting into your daily life?
But that's a real good point, Lurbz. So maybe when we said fitting in, this segment we always say is an exploratory one, where we explore the topic and what, when we start to delve deeper as the show progresses, is it then that we're talking about the difference between being a sheeple, like following, and fitting in? Because like you said, in certain cases, imitation is the highest form of flattery. So in a case of fitting in and assimilating in certain circumstances to get somewhere is not a bad thing. But when you become, there must be someone that leads and follows. But when you follow and you lose self, that's where I think it then becomes a negative, because you're doing things out of your desire just to be almost a people pleaser.
Yeah, I think it's exacerbated by social media as well, because this generation now that's coming up is growing up in that era of you seeing what the quote-unquote socially acceptable behavior is. As in, this is the behavior, this is how you have to behave to fit in. And you see it sometimes. I think a perfect example is like school dances. Before, I would say, you want to say before the year 2010, less phones around, less people around, less social media. It was still they had a presence there, but it wasn't as heavy as it is today. So school dances, they had
somewhat of an okay energy. Now you get certain dancers, they don't even want to dance. They don't want to be filmed dancing. They don't want to be made fun of on social media. They don't want to sit down and say, well, you dance weird, or you're not dancing at all, or you're dancing by yourself, or you're dancing with this person, and it falls into that, well, you don't fit in because you're not part of the mold in that sense.
But you don't want to be socially awkward either. I mean, I know with social media, as you said, anything that you do at that moment then is there for all to see. It's there permanently, and that for sure is a pressure. But to be socially awkward, when someone might say, like, some of the things I tell my son when he goes, yeah, but that's mine. At 8 years old, that's a tendency. That's mine. I want it. Or when someone wants it, they want it themselves. And I tried to say to him, I said, you need to share. And in part of sharing is me knowing, yes, you need to share. It's the right thing to do. But also, you don't want to be shunned, ostracized, even from that age, that whether they have the emotional intelligence to really understand why they don't want to be associated with that person. As you grow older, there is then a further understanding, like, I just don't like, there's a personality clash. And you don't want to be around certain people, which is why even in college, you have those who become a prefect, or those who lead, and those who just...
Well, I guess what Kevaughn was saying too is really a fine line. I mean, we're using the words fitting in, right? And many times when we say words, each person have a specific meaning that they attach to it. So if we go in fitting in, to me, even the word fit means to put something into. Like sometimes you could be forcing it into a mold or squeezing it into a mold, versus you could be inspired. And I like what he said about that, because if I look at 5 people and I say, I like this person's shoes, I like this person's pants, shirt, hat, etc., and then I put together something and say, well, it's mine. It's not necessarily that I follow in them or that I trying to fit in, but I was inspired by what they had on, so now I create something for my own. So I'm glad you say that. And then you said, Robert, how people would perceive of you. Now, I think, at least for me, and I will say personally, growing up, how people perceive me was really important. Because first I want to please my parents. I want to please the elders around me. I was in church. I want to please. So it had levels of, I want to please this person, or I don't want to look bad in front of this person. And then places where I live. And I remember one day I remember feeling real frustrated. I think I was 12 or 13. Because I know what I want to do, but I'm trying to please all these people. And then I think something in me changed where at first I just didn't care anymore. I know what I like to do, but I know if I did or said so many things I wanted to, I mightn't be welcomed as
definitely
as nicely again, or I might be shunned, or like, you see what your son say, see what your son doing, etc., etc. So I mean,
but that's emotional intelligence, though. I mean, to an extent, that's you reading the room and knowing what is apt or not to say. But
you say that, right? The problem I think with society is a lot of people don't know themselves. And that's where the fitting coming into play. So this is where the gray area, I will say, I spoke about, where if you don't take the time to understand who you are, you'll end up trying to fit in and disregard your own self and not mind your own business. Because you're trying to watch a man who wearing the latest Clarks, but you yourself even ask yourself if you like a Clarks, if it's for you. So we lose ourselves with, to go back where you were saying about social media. Social media, we need to remember, social media is still brand new. It's still under 15 years old. And people don't understand, and it evolves so rapidly that's where the fit-in comes into play as fast. We live with a short attention span. And you got the word ADHD is such a common word these days, but people start to realize people start to realize now that do I have ADHD because I realized I watched something for 2 seconds and I just changed my mind if it's really not for me, and it changed so rapidly with that fitting in. You try something quickly, it's not for me. I watch something on social media, it's not for me. You change it quickly, and then someone will be like, 1 minute you wasn't here, and then, but you lose. People tend to don't know how to find that balance within knowing what they consume that applies to their life, whether it be from a social media standpoint, whether it be from being around the right energy, right groups of people. You'll go to a party and could be straight, and my my business, the first thing I learned in this industry was never be a consumer of the product. But I live in the product. I make money from the product. And to be around so much people that I'll be straight. We see so much drugs, so much people and do the most mad, craziest things. And how do I find a way to fit in the industry without being a consumer of the industry? So that's why I say when it comes to fitting, you the individual have to know what you're about, how it benefits you, where you go, and how it aligns in what your social, what your spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical presence. You got to know about you first and where you put yourself in. And because people don't know that, they end up going in places that they just don't fit in.
I think it's prevalent in the entertainment industry, heavy more than any other part of the manosphere, if you will. And when men go into a space, I feel like in the entertainment industry, parties, events, especially in Trinidad and Tobago culture, that's fets is part of our culture. Boat rides is part of our culture. Everything is part of our culture. We are very party people, right? But as Lurbz was saying, it is something where there's a fine line between peer pressure and fitting in as well, knowing what you want to do, what you want to try, what you want to allow yourself to try, versus what you allow people to try and peer pressure you into trying due to you wanting to fit in. As in, you will try it because you want to fit in. As in, and that to me is a slippery slope with the real people as well. People end up getting hooked, sometimes homeless now because they decided 10 years ago they wanted to try a drug for the first time, or they wanted to try drinking alcohol. Me personally, I'm a live and live kind of person, so if they want to do that, that is on them. But it's also a personal decision when you look at the psychology behind it of, did they do it because they want, just like you answered, are you doing it because you want to do it, or because they're gonna not like me if I don't do it. I'm not gonna fit into the crowd. I'm gonna be that person on the outs, antisocial, socially awkward because I didn't try this, or I didn't want to do this. Even though sometimes you might be grounded in yourself, knowing this is not for me. That's not who I am. That's not how I grew up. That's not how my mother, father raised me. That's not who I am. But you're doing it because, well, so and so is over there, and they're saying, well, this girl like you, but this girl only like men who just do this, or wear this, or smell like that, So it come like that is a part to fitting in as well.
So you said it there in your answer. I wanted to, as you said that about centering self, and you mentioned a couple things there, one of which is your upbringing and knowing who self is. Because if you don't know who self is, then you're going to fit into any crowd that comes about that feels good or seemingly feels good, or you feel appreciated. Because at the core, men want to feel respected. At the core of being a man, you want two things, which is to know that you're enough and to be loved. So if with all those things, if you don't have the right community, and by community I mean parents, friends, family, persons around you who are where you want to aspire to be. They say hang out with the 5 friends who are going in the direction that you want to go. And if you don't have that, to know yourself, to know that grounding, because ultimately we spoke about gut feeling at one point, and you know what is right and what is wrong, then you're going to be misled. You're going to be led astray. If something happens to you and you realize, whether it be at childhood, and as you grow older, because this word peer pressure, a lot of times when I hear it, it immediately feels like it's a teenage thing. But it's not. You get your peer pressure is simply pressure from your peers. And unless you are centered and know what you are about, then you're going to...
Hear the scary part about that what you just said, right? You remember I said about social media, it's brand new to the world? Because it's brand new to the world, and the pandemic make it even 10 times worse, I would say, we have disconnected peer pressure. People don't play in the game, people don't play in the streets, so we're speaking about things that don't apply to this world anymore. So kids, the generation we live in, they live on social media. You can't tell emotion kissing clips. The peer pressure don't come from people going outside online with their neighbors anymore. The groups get smaller, so the influence really come from a screen, a phone when nobody looking, and they live off of clips. And the clips, now if you don't know what you're consuming, you're really getting a peer pressure from a screen that is a real fake it till you make it lifestyle. So because of the mixture of the pandemic where we distance ourselves more, if you realize the club life is dying because we no longer know how to socialize like that. So the whole social I would say frequency of the world has changed because we prefer small, intimate settings. And it goes back to the cliche saying of from your grandmother, show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. People choosing friends over social media hype, substance over, not the people not going for substance anymore, people going for hype. So you see someone on social media and think, I go online with XYZ because, yo, you see that? Because you're sharing clips.
So, Lurbz, in other words, they have people that are trying to fit in with a crowd that they themselves don't believe that they fit in.
They're trying.
Whether consciously or subconsciously. Yeah, you answer?
Well, one is that's a good point you bring up, because after the pandemic, the pandemic in itself is something that we never experienced. So we have no history, no research to go off of how it affects us, right? So what you're saying there is a good point. So now we're trying to figure out this thing that we have
really complicated.
we have no history on, and knowing yourself, because you said it and I think Robert, you said it too, takes so much courage to really know yourself, that if you're not trained and you say everybody from a different background, I don't know anybody who grew up in perfect childhood. I don't know anybody who had the perfect childhood, who parents was the perfect this and whatever. But what I think is where we start to realize if something feeling quote unquote wrong or misaligned is where we have these set values and practices, but it's not working anymore. Right? So let's just say when I was young, using your example, I only child, I don't share. That's why I grew up learning. So I learned everybody had their own thing. And that to me is real. But then I reach an environment where people sharing, and that kind of strange to me. But me keeping things to myself, not allowing me to even thrive in that environment. So now I would question, what do I really want to do? And it's not a matter sometimes of fitting in the negative sense, but analyzing what is best for me to survive at times, or what is best for me to thrive. And then I do that. But even you see all of that analysis I just do there, that is a lot of, that's from experience. That I couldn't think like this, or I didn't think like this in my early 20s even, but I could think like this now. So guidance, one, I think for youth is important, but also as older people, because some people may not even know themselves, is to question, is this working for me still in this environment?
And right now, we need to fit in a time for a break.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're talking about fitting in. This is manhood. Big conversation still to come.
So this is manhood that we're talking about fitting in. So as we were talking here before, even off here, about the entertainer. As an entertainer, this is where the balance come into play. And that fitting in, although we use the word fitting in, we apply a emotion. We use an emotion behind it that is a word that needs to be emotionless. Understand where I'm going with this? If you're fitting in, you ought to know, start inward before you go outward, right? If you understand the environment that you put yourself in as a human, whether it be from a family member, whether it be from a party, whether it be from a church, whether it be from any aspect of it, even being here, I'm coming here to fit in a conversation. You have to understand that how it applies to you in any environment. So as a entertainer, we're going in a world where you're sitting at the table with like-minded people, which you might perceive may be like-minded, but you have to fit in a sense to understand if it matches your wavelength to entertain walk out the room, to entertain for a little bit, or you actually fall in, or you actually fit in. So with me being an entertainer, there was many environments that I say every environment I've been is a unique environment that I have to tailor to the people around, because the light is always on. You never know who's watching. We as entertainers, there's many things we can't do to the public, or the public is watching, and
all the time.
And I use the word discipline as I would say on this entertainment scenario, because I will say it's not about fitting, it's about having the discipline to understand that time and place. Understanding that this is the time and place that you have to act at a certain level to sit at this table that you have to fit in. So the balance comes from understanding that the fit in, that word fit in, you just had to remove the try to fit in the funny
The
part
negative
of it.
connotation, because
and understand how you're going to work it to your favor.
Look like a party you through. Like we talking about raft up, right? And we had a conversation. I was like, "Hey, what happened, boy? You didn't tell me about the party." And my thing is that my immediate thought would be I wouldn't fit into that crowd. When I say fit in, meaning how I felt at that point, that I'm not in the best shape right now, and I'd want to go there a six-pack and wheelie myself, or whatever the terminology is right now, showing my age. But I felt I wouldn't have fit in, so therefore you don't go. But really, you could go and still have a good time because you still meet like-minded people, you still can have a drink, but you're concerned about the judgment of other persons, because that is our environment in terms of the we are, as entertainers or presenters, we also have to be cognizant and conscious of what people perceive.
But I do have a question for all three of you, right? Because we're talking about fitting in terms of the business side, because you said entertainment industry, and the key word there is industry, is a business at the end of the day, right? Where's the line between I have my morals and my values, and I know what I will and will not do, versus what will affect your pocket at the end of the day, whether you have pressure from a sponsor, a promoter, anything in the space, right? And it extends not only from us, the three of us here in the entertainment industry, but again, I feel like anybody with a phone and a social media account is considering themselves a part of the entertainment industry.
They are.
If you are a TikToker, or you just make Instagram reels, to me, you're part of the entertainment industry, because you are part of media that people take in and watch on a daily basis. So where's the line as entertainers where you separate what I want to do to fit in and be popular and get views and make money, versus I can't do that because it's against my morals, it's against my values?
One Johan says scientific background, but I would just tell you in terms of my values and morals, I am a different presenter or host to a lot of other persons. I'm not a whiner boy or saying certain things, but not judging any of them, but just in terms of what they feel confident in doing. I don't consider myself a dancer, so I wouldn't go into that realm. But in terms of a line to do certain things, you determine that in the industry, or before you go into the industry, is this for you or is it not for you? And if it's not for you, then you step out, because or you will be stepped out regardless, because you're not going to get the work. And the bottom line is, in this field, you are about likes. People say, why are you always worried about what people are thinking of you? I know who I am, and I am centered in who I am and what I stand for. But to say, to live in a box and say you're not concerned with what other people think is stupid, because if nobody likes you and they're not watching anything that you do, then you're not going to be relevant. You're not going to get sponsored. So you must care what people think. But am I going to do things above and beyond just to fit in to that mold? No, I'm going to stay centered, but you follow me or like what I do because you like who I am at the core. If that makes sense.
So it's all about character. You ought to know your morals and your values. It stands down. It all boils down to that. In this business, they will offer you. Let's say, sell your soul. But it's all about what you want. And if you know you're standing on business in the sense of, it's not about dollars and cents. It's about my morals and values and what I'm willing to how I want to be viewed. It's all about you and how much and you are the price in it. If you say you want to sell it for $5 because someone want to tell you, hey, I want you to drink water or the canal for $5, that is on you. If you know you stand in your ground to say, I'm in if I have a responsibility because I have 5 people following me, 100 people following me, 10,000 people following me on social media platform, it's your responsibility to stand up and say, if you are following me, I stand on my ethics, my values, and my morals, and you can't, and I'm not selling on for $1.
You think people in this day and age are becoming afraid of not fitting in and doing more outlandish things in order to fit in?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, and the thing is, it's, you know, as you talk about grandmother, you know, my grandparents, I grew up with hearing, you know, why you always trying to fit in when you were born to stand out. And many people, you know, if you really take that on, we come back to there must be a leader and there must be followers, because without followers there'd be no leader, or without a leader there'll be no followers, right? And there must be someone who takes the bull by the horn, so to speak, or takes the helm or sets the trend. But they can be a leader in a specific thing. You can be a leader in another area. But to say to be, I lost my train of thought.
that running rampant today. All right, so let me come with something. So to what you were saying before about entertainer and the entertainment industry, and then you said anybody, well, not anybody, a lot of people now could be entertainers because they have a phone and such. You see, it's not only, I would say it's not only entertainment, because depending on your position, quote unquote, in society or your profession, eyes are on you, right? Because I'll tell you, I have some clientele who in the medical field, right? And because they are doctors or physicians, right? They are looked upon in society. They can't do certain things. So I have one guy in particular. He and his family, well, extended family, just go on Lime once a month. And once a month, he just drink. I remember people getting on because you're a big doctor, you drinking, but it's once a month, eh? He said he don't touch anything else any other time. And that once a month, not even drink till he drunk. He's just drinking with family. But
let me ask you something for context, though. Is he drinking because he wants to drink? Or is he not, or is it the other way around? That
no, he's drinking because he wants to drink. But
right.
But he have pressure now, because now he even thinking, and I'm going the opposite of the peer pressure, because he now thinking maybe he not even feeling to line with his family. He not even feeling to drink, or he have to hide or choose a different location.
So he's not drinking to fit in.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Right. Or at least contemplating it. And I remember he feeling so much pressure. This once a month, but because of his quote unquote perceived station in society, because he was like, where's one drink a month? That's not affecting me in any way. So I'm saying eyes are on people and different things in society. We had pastors on here, and I remember they saying that they feel like they can't do certain things because they are pastor. And what they do is nothing wrong, you know, or nothing against their values, but perception. So now people's perception of who you are. You could be, let's say, even somebody quote unquote popular. Let's say you are a teacher, right? You have no social media account, no nothing. But because you're a teacher, everybody know you're a teacher. As a teacher, you're not supposed to XYZ. And they would try to put you or fit you, like we usually would fit you in some kind of box. So I think the thing is, no matter where you are perceived as something. I'll even get a T-Fed with one. I remember doing some counseling in the prisons. And I remember one of the clients, he was a gang member, right? And he was saying it even has certain things like gang member he couldn't do because he'd be perceived a certain way, right? So depending on how you classify yourself based on the environment, sometimes you can be forced, I'm using that word loosely, forced to be or not be something you really want to be because you want to fit in.
Is it that in the fitting in then, if we really getting down to the nuts and bolts, is that it comes down to, if you're not centered and you don't know who self is in the man in the mirror, then you're going to be open or swayed in every side of it. Because if you're a particular way and you want to fit in, it's because you want to be seen, you want to be appreciated, you want to be respected. But if for some reason that in you continue to be self, because that might work for you for, say, 10 years, or for this particular environment, and then in another environment you are still self and you are ridiculed or judged or you don't fit in, you have to be centered to know this is me. And when the ridicule comes, because you're centered, you can weather the storm. But if you're not centered in self, then...
And that's the thing right there. So you mentioned about that guy there. We were talking off here earlier about about authenticity. And if you're authentic with your own self, we live in a world because of so much the court of public opinion. We lose ourselves because of the fear factor of not being able to fit in. And that's where the disconnect comes from. You question your own morals and values. Am I doing something wrong? So in your scenario with that doctor, he's now questioning his own morals and values and being outshadowed of the saying on a paper. They just, that one dot on the paper, they bypass all the good and all, but that one dot where the court of public opinion has put a pressure on him that he feels wrong for putting doubt in his own self, knowing that I've been sober for the past 30 days. Was my one day, and how am I being ridiculed? But if you stand on your morals and values and say, hey, I could stand up against the peer pressure and be like, if you take the time to understand who I am and what I do, you will understand that this is my escape. Because if I lose myself 30 days in this job to make sure that I'm on point, I need a day off. I don't judge anybody. So you standing up against the masses to say, this is authentically me. This is me being real. I'm talking to you and I need you not to judge me, but understand me.
But Lurbz, on the flip side of that, right? Because the court of public opinion, to me, has gained an immense level of strength. We talk about things like cancel culture. We talk about the fear of said doctor losing his place, losing his practice, his opportunity to do what he loves, right? That, to me, it have a place in fitting in, because he might say, you know what, I want to continue to be a doctor. I want to continue to be a teacher. I want to continue to do whatever it is. So I will not drink every 30 days, or I will not take part in things that the quote-unquote court of public opinion may they will frown upon, right? Is that, to me, that is also, you're not fitting in. You're taking a step back, and you're almost retreating into a shell and basically promoting yourself as a person. And when I say promoting yourself, you're basically retreating inside of a shell and not really.
It's like an alt ego, but as Lurbz said at the start, you have to in that fitting in, you have to know what you're about. You have to know where you want to get to. So if in there you know you're doing more good than bad, and you're telling yourself, listen, this is my calling in life, and I need to do. In order to do that, there's certain things, there's certain sacrifices you have to make, even with self, because of, as you would quote, the court of public opinion. You know that this is the advent of social media. You know there are consequences as a result of certain actions. So the bigger picture is like, you don't want to win the battle and lose the war. So you tell yourself, hey, let me then not drink in order to continue to do my practice and provide for my community or my family and all the other things. Or you could stand your ground and say, listen, I am not going to be a hypocrite, and therefore in doing that, you have to be accepting of the fact that there are consequences to those actions, and people may then decide, I'm not going by you. So it's a balancing act.
It's a balance. So you're watching with YouTubers. YouTube is a rat race. YouTube is a rat race where you lose yourself in so much at people pleasing. So that doctor, like I said, people pleasing, you pleasing your crowd, and you're losing yourself. You lose yourself so much by doing good when you perceive, you put yourself out there on this, you put your own self on a pedestal to the public, that one wrong move that you make, and you don't even defend your own self to be like, hey, I know to understand that I'm going to lose the dollar value because I'm going to lose people because I'm going to stand up for me. If I've been sober for 30 days and I've been focused to make sure I execute my job, being on time on the ward and executing all these things, I need to turn off. So it's understanding, treat yourself, don't cheat yourself. And a lot of people cheat themselves on the opportunity of treating themselves.
But what about Lurbz? If the doctor, again, we talk about bigger picture, depends what your bigger picture is. Because if him standing up for himself or doing that act loses clientele and loses money, if that's his focus and his bigger picture, then fair enough. He's cheating himself. But if his bigger picture is feeding, say, 3 families, and he has to use your term, your wording, cheat himself in order to treat them and the bigger picture in this case, then kudos to him. But depends what your bigger picture is. But if you're fitting in and doing that simply for, say, selfish reasons or something that is not might be seen as admirable, then to me that's a negative, because you are losing self. You are not being your authentic self, and that's where I'm saying that it becomes a negative when you're trying so hard to fit in that you're losing.
Yeah, I agree with you, because I'll fast forward. That was the beginning of the story with the doctor, right? What he ended up doing is he weighed his options. What is his bigger picture? And what he said was having fun with his family, right? And this is not only his immediate, this was the extended, was more important than people's perception. He say, let's say worst case scenario, I lose my practice because of it. What he said was his family was there before the clients, right? Is they help him even go through medical school and etc. Now that's his bigger picture. And then what ended up happening is he just was doing his thing. It has some people who actually came and say, well, I hear you're a doctor who does drink. You're drinking today? And he just, what he said, he stopped responding. He said, what you just tell people, I just take a drink once a month with my family because we have a family get together, and that is it. And what ended up happening is some people stopped coming because they thought he just drink, and they even make up, he just drink on the job, all kind of thing they make up. But then some people was like, hey, you are family man, I understand what it is, and if you just take a drink, so what, I just take a drink too. And then they came. So what ended up happening is the people who was aligned with who he authentically was came, right? But there was a period the way it was rough for him when he started to lose clients. It was a little rough. But he's like, you know what? Am I going to stop having fun with my family? And I asked him a question. I said, if you find out you have a year to live, what would you do different? He said, I would just spend more time with my family. He said, I actually drink more family.
It goes right, so you see, that story goes right back to your question when you're saying which one comes first. It's not even applied to entertainment. It's about dollars and which one comes first. A lot of people put dollars over that. That's themselves. They lose themselves for the dollar. So for the social media aspect of it, and my family comes first, and who vex, and that's the doctor's standpoint. So you can't fight somebody for who stand on business saying, I fit in at what works for me. So fitting in what I would say is all about self. What aligns with you to fit, what fits and aligns with you. And when you figure that out, everything else will fall into play. That's supposed to fall into play.
That's a good note to take a break. Fitting in.
Welcome back to Manhood. I know Lurbz, you was talking about some stuff during the commercial break, something to do with fitment and social acceptance as well.
But we ain't really talk, but the part we really hit the nail on the head, or our road we didn't go down, is about fitting in with relationships. We watch so much people in unhappy relationships because they're trying to fit in. So much people in arranged marriages, so much people conforming to old rules that don't apply, taking loans, choosing so much stuff that we apply the old rules on because we're trying to fit in when they don't fit anymore. So you'll be in an unhappy home for years because you don't want the public perception, or you want to let down your family members. So many family members peer pressure their significant others, their loved ones to stay in relationships where they're unhappy. I spoke to a friend recently, and she's like, I'm unhappy in my marriage because it's not that I don't love him anymore. It's just I need change. I need to fly. I need to do certain things. And she went to tell her family member, another family member, and that family member was like, nah, stay with the man good. And she was like, so what about my happiness? And it was so sad because you're watching for a family member forcing you to fit in because what the neighbor will, what the public will perceive it as, what the neighbor will say, with this one, so much years invested. But we change every single day. You could wake up one morning and fall out of love the same way you wake up one day and fall in love. It just happened. And if you don't be firm with yourself to say this no longer fits in my life, from a religion, from spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, you'll be lost.
You know, you said something there, Lurbz, as well. I mean, oh boy, you're preaching today, boy, Mr. Profound. Where, part of that fitting in, even in relationships, even things like how people go and take loans. You know, my grandmother would always say, you know, don't hang your hat higher than you could reach. And yet still a lot of people do it simply to be part of the circle.
I shared this once on the show. I speaking to some money lenders, right? And we know money lenders is not necessarily establishments. And they say married men especially is the easiest because they're always trying to please somebody. It's easy to catch a married man with a loan or something with exacerbated interest because he's always trying to please somebody. So just add into that.
I mean, I fell in that at one point. You look at your friends, and you know, you see your friends are, whether they're successful or something happens, and you end up in a situation where you go into college and all your buddies, your friends, have excelled or perception that they've excelled because they could be doing the same thing. They could be going and getting loans, and you think, wow, they're so successful. You know, we talk about fake it till you make it at one point. And to do that, you are now saying, well, am I the quote-unquote loser in this line? And you may do things in order to level up in certain ways, or to go to a bar and say, nah, don't worry, the meal on me. Anything to perceive to fit in or to continue to fit in, not realizing that they're your friends, not for that, but because they're your friends from when you guys, I would say, had nothing. But it is whatever you feel you need to do to fit in or to make new friends. And again, we come back down to the reasons for some of those things is the grounding. Because if you're grounded in knowing what you stand for and knowing what you're about, then you won't be trying to people please and do things above. But because you feel less than, you feel the need in certain ways to...
I think it's real easy for people to experience that feeling less than feeling now than before. I think before, you usually with competing almost, right? If you want to talk about marriage, if you want to talk about work, if you want to talk about just achieving goals in life, really and truly, the only people 20, 30 years ago you was competing with is the people that you saw. And the people you saw was the people you know, around the corner, up the road, somebody from basically in your area. Now, you have a magnifying glass on not just everyone in the country, but the entire world. So you're not focusing or trying to compete or measure up to not just the people around the corner. You're looking at people in Dubai, people who fly in every week, and you're thinking, wait, boy, when is your time? Maybe, and you know...
So you're feeling inadequate?
A lot of, yeah, but the feeling of inadequacy comes, is from comparison. And to me, social media is that comparison tool. It is the ultimate comparison tool because you're looking at other people's lives. And you're saying, well...
The perception of their lives.
Well, yes, because that is true. The perception is sometimes very far from reality, very true, because you have people who sometimes, as you say, faking it till they make it, taking loans to look like they live in very large, and sometimes they're in crippling debt or depression, and they're always posting that they're happy. So it's a very, very, very interesting part of it, but it comes back to fitting in because a lot of people will try and fit in with that lifestyle and say, I need to get there, or I need to, that is a goal for me. I want to get there. I want to have 3 cars. I want to have 2 houses. I want to fly every week. As in, that is what they've seen people do. That is what's normal to them. That is their idea of success. And so it becomes a goal in people's minds. And sometimes when they reach there, they're not even happy because they realize, one, the people who were doing it either weren't doing it the way they were portraying it, or when they got there, they realized what they had to sacrifice to reach there was not worth it. In terms of the same thing with the doctor thing, the doctor could as easily go on and said, you know what, I'm gonna stop doing this, and I'm gonna lie, I'm not gonna do anything, no family time. I'm gonna hammer down and just work. And by the time he get to his goal at the age of 35, 40, 50, he sit down and realize, well, I have no friends now. I have no family now. My goal was financially fitting in at that point in time. And I have no friends, I have no family, I have nobody to share it with because I'm financially here now, I'm fitting in financially with the people I was idolizing, and now they're not there. Nobody's there. So I guess it comes back to that level of balance and knowing yourself and understanding.
Be a square pegs in round holes for somebody else.
Yeah.
You know, you might fit in on one side, but what it comes down to is what you're willing to sacrifice for where you want to be.
To me, like I say, I have no reason to impress anyone. 0% of me competing with anyone. So to the line when somebody say they do care, it's not matter they do care what the public perceive them. It's just you don't care to the point of you know what you stand for, what you're about. And you see, if you understand that your happiness comes first and you're protected by God, there's nobody can really take that from you, you know. You could say what you want, you know. You could build any stone. But you so confident in your mission of being happy and peaceful that trying to fit in to others may come across like you do care. But if somebody understand, like, so perfect example with my friends, I have some powerful friends and I let them know straight on me like, man, brother, man, I don't have the money like you all. I don't flex no Rolex. I bring a different level of substance to the table. I don't have that financial gain. So if you're trying to get me to 15 and you think I go and buy the bottles of champagne and the $1,000 bills and I have it, I do have it. But understanding that we are sitting at a table where how am I going to sit at this table to make sure we all happy? So I'm considering the fact that if I don't have the financial gain to spend the bottles like everybody else, what else am I bringing to the table to fit in? Because nobody here to ride each other's wave.
Do you find a pressure in that?
No, I don't. I've managed to understand every table I sit at, because of, like I said, you have to be able to adapt quickly to know how to fit in and when, time and place. So if I know I go in an environment where I know money go and fly like that, and people look, I let my friends and them know to expect that from me. I could bring the gills, I could bring the vibes, I could bring the laughter, I could bring the entertainment, and you be real. You just be real. So I then, you know, because all of y'all driving expensive cars, I not go and try to drive, but you go pick me up in a nice car. And if you want to roll it at B14 and come off the scene incognito, I bring in that to the table, because you're understanding the level of how to fit in, what you're bringing to the table.
So let me ask you something. On that same table, you're bringing the vibes, you're bringing the girls, right? Now, if they invite you on a line when you just not feeling to be vibesy, do you feel a pressure at that point to go to a line knowing that what your contribution is not going to be
I don't go, and I tell you straight.
That's what I'm saying. So you're now telling yourself you're not going to go.
Because I'm not in the mood and I don't have nothing to really bring to the table. So it's understanding time and place. And if I go to so we learn this with being on here. They always say whether you could have the crappiest day, a family member could die, whatever it is. If you press that on air button, the world energy transfers. So you better to bring that here. I never tell it to come to work, but when you press that on button, you better smile and you better feel, and we learn that from entertainment.
That, yeah.
They taught us that from jump. So understanding you have that talent. If you learn it there, you apply that rule to every scenario and know when is that on button.
Yeah, suck it up.
So you had to buy that bullet. And you don't know when to go in, when to step in the ring, and when to bow out. So if I know I go in an environment where I do have the funds, and I know I'm a man that if I don't have funds, I go and throw off my energy, then do like I have a brethren. Boy, every time we go out, he's sour. Sometimes, at times we'll go out and he's sour. And I'll be like, one day I'm like, why? What was that energy about? I didn't have the money. And I'm like, you're off, dog. And I would call out and I'd say you're off because it's a disrespect to me. Because if we rolling and you don't have no money, I'm not expecting you to pay the money. I expect you to bring a certain level of energy. So you worried about something when it comes to a financial situation, a fitting. No, I need you here from a different level. I need you here to bring our wingman energy, a laughter energy, a mental energy to the table. So you kill the whole vibe because you think you don't have the money. If it was like that, I prefer you to stay home. So it's being realistic with yourself to know when to bow out now.
Do you think men communicate in that? You think men communicate in that?
You see about being real to yourself. And I mean, we do plenty of these shows, and we always ask, what is a man? What really make a man now, right? And one answer, I mean, that answer has changed often, but of late is being real to yourself, you know. If you want to know what it is to be a man and navigate fitting in as being a man, is being real. Being real. If I have no money, that is the truth. I have no money. And
to add to that, I love how you said that. Being real and having discipline.
Yeah, but what about, but Lurbz, I want to get, before we move on with that point, I would introspect at that point and ask myself, why my friend is feeling like that. Like, of course, you feel like that. You can't be responsible for their feelings and their emotion. But am I going in a line? I would never want my friends or people I hang out with to think that I am there to use them. So whether your partner have a boat or whether he could have a house down the islands or could fly anywhere, to know that, hey, we are friends because we are friends, not because what you have is a perk. It allows us to do things and enjoy things outside of the norm. But even if you lost that today, tomorrow, I'm still here. I'm still your friend. And I think that it goes both ways to constantly reassure one another that what is at the core, again, is what makes us.
And that's what I say. So with him, like, when he told me it's about the money, I'm like, bro, I wasn't expecting you to bring money. I don't need you for that. It's not about it. It's about I need you around to bring energy. So don't shy away. But so when he brought the bad energy, is to be able to be like, yo, let me talk. As a man, what happened there? And then I heard this story, and I'm like, dude, I didn't expect you for money. So that's why I said I learned that from me sitting at certain tables when I'm like, I being straight up front. Once we assess, I could walk in a room and assess the situation instantly and say, all right, where we going with this line? And I will let you know when it's time to move off, if I in or I out, because I already I already processed the situation to know. I have discipline to know, do I have 5,000 in my pocket and I go and spend that 5,000 because I try to show off, or I have discipline enough to know that I bowing out of this one because this is a money game.
But as men, as a man, a big part of that, we always talk about men versus women in terms of men are protectors, providers, women are nurturers, etc. And in that providing thing, I don't think it stops with that mindset, even when you're amongst your peers.
Yeah,
because
I was about to ask him
because
that. Yeah.
there's still a level of competition. There's still a level, especially if you're around women or your significant other, and you are not able to level up or be on the same level as the people you're around. So if, for example, you're mingling with people who are paying the $1,000 bill, and it must, even though your friends are accepting and say, well, I do expect you to pay, you still inside tell yourself, but either I still want to be able to, even though I mightn't have to, I feel less than because I can't. And in that competitive spirit, whether it be a negative or a positive, you feel that you don't fit in because this is not my crowd, because I'm no longer able to, I'm not on the same level as these friends now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Not really, because you see how what Kevaughn said about you ask a question, you notice something, and you ask a question. I'll give you an example. I used to be on a Fet Match team, and we used to run into problems where we had limes, we had retreats, wherever, and we put up money, and then people would come who don't put up money. And then, or come, and then only at the end say, well, I don't really have the money. We used to get vexed because we used to say, all of these boys, just say something.
Be real, be upfront.
Just say, hey, we're supposed to pay $100, but only have $20, what could do? And then we would say something like, well, what you could do instead is, hey, you cook. You cook then. So use a man who points on point would cook. We will put the rest for you. And when men start,
we might like a handout.
No,
might
stop.
like charity.
Stop. So I will stop you there. I'll stop you there because you're mixing up dollars and cents with value. If you bring value, that you put dollar value to something that is not tangible. There's mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. So a man can know if we're doing a lime, I know you're not the money man, but I know you're physically able to cook. You bring a value that has that brings more value than who bringing the chaser, who bringing the, because I ain't get paid. But if I know here what's going on, it's follow before we in the line. And every Sunday we lime after the football match, and everybody understand the role and responsibility from the internal self to say, what value am I bringing to this football match? Am I the best football player? So I had to make sure I'm the best football player because I have no money. So I know my brethren, then I'm going to be like, they want my wrong. Or, boy, I could cook. Oh boy, I the money, but I can't play football. It's understanding the value.
If you're a car cook.
Right, but you gotta bring something else, whether it be spiritual. You better come and pray after, no? You better be the prayer. You better come and bust a prayer to be like, so why Johnny always dipping in the pot and drinking him with that man does bust a prayer that off? You're understanding the value that you bring to the table and you apply it to everything you do in life. From a company, from friendship, from spirit. You must be an asset over a liability.
Well, my question is, right, and it's for both of your situations, right, because I know you're talking about the conversations you all had after the fact, or the thought process you all had after the fact. We're saying you could have said something, we could have organized, because at the end of the day, we's boys, right? In a situation where you go from normally bringing up those things, as in he normally pitching, he normally cook, he normally bring the vibes, whatever. And the day that the date in question, the lime in question, he don't bring the vibes, or he don't bring the food, or he don't bring the money. As a man, and I think it's deep-rooted for all men, you feel that responsibility, and let me just use financial as an example. If we go in for drinks, you feel that responsibility to pay for yourself, especially if you're doing it on a regular basis. Especially if we custom liming and all four of us.
You don't want to be a loss.
Yeah, we splitting it 4 ways. We custom splitting it 4 ways. It is almost deep-rooted that you don't want to bring it up. It's almost like an embarrassing thing.
And that deep-rooted thing is something that we had to stop, because we have to be real with ourselves to know that if I'm sitting with a brethren and I can't tell you I don't have money today, then I have a problem.
I know your brethren, no.
If I had to feel that type
that's
of way,
what coming down to Lurbz, then it's not your brethren.
that's saying. So
if you feel in that way, then your gut is, you're already telling yourself that something is missing here, and therefore that is not your deep brethren. If you are so concerned with, hey, I can't give you something like a tit for tat.
It's not tit for tat. Tit for tat. To me, anything that gives you anxiety is bad for you. Anxiety is a disease, I will say. Anything that, if you have to go to your office and be like, Jesus Christ, bad. You walk into a relationship, anxiety. Walking into any room and feel like, if you had to feel anxiety to fit in, just have a bear, it speaks volumes. And we don't be realistic with ourselves to be like, why am I feeling anxious like this? Why am I feeling like I can't talk to a brethren and be like, boy, I bring in bears all the time, and this one time me and bring a bear, I had to feel so off and anxious that I can't talk to you, then I can't line with you. We are the wrong table.
Because you want to fit in.
And that's the difference, like I said, in understanding how that word fit in comes into play. It's all about self, peace and happiness. So if I know if I'm anxious, that means you're not peaceful. So if in order for me peaceful, I go and tell my team, I don't have it today.
So on that note, if you want to continue that flow to the nation, give your thoughts on fitting in as we're about to close.
My thoughts on fitting in is fit in with yourself. Look in the mirror. It might sound funny. My mind might and be like, boy, me doing that. You'll never believe. You wake up and look yourself in the mirror and be real with yourself, and understanding that you have those trigger buttons that send you 0 to 100. Be real with yourself, with your demons, and understand how to work with your triggers, and understand that to control it is one word and one word only. Having the discipline to understand that this is how I feel as a man, and I have to understand when I'm walking out there, I need to know my triggers and know how to control those triggers to make sure that I control my happiness and peace in order for me to fit in any environment that I'm going in.
No, I definitely agree. Fitting in to me is about, like Lurbz said, knowing yourself first and foremost, being cognizant of the environment that you're in, and knowing what is for you and what not for you. At the end of the day, it is all well and good, because I know, as you say, love and respect is something that every man wants. Love and respect, but don't let it be at the cost of your values. Don't let it be at the cost of who you are as a person, because you could fit in today and be out on the road tomorrow. So at the end of the day, you have to know yourself first and foremost.
Men, even though it's easier said than done, fitting in and being your authentic self could take a lot of effort, but it is highly important, because if you try to fit in and is not aligned with who you are, it will degrade your mental health and your mental and emotional well-being. And if you're not being yourself, then you're being something that God didn't create it to be. Whether you believe it, like say you don't even believe in God, if you believe the universe creates you, but if you not being your authentic self, you're being something that you're not, which is not real and could never be healthy.
This was another good one. A lot of thought to go into this one. I mean, the bottom line is you could only be yourself. That's the only thing you could truly be, yourself. And you don't. Nobody knows you better than you know yourself. So there's always that horses for courses. So if you're not fitting in one environment, then go to another. And at some point you will fit in. And when you don't fit in that environment anymore, you move on. As long as you're grounded in self and being centered in self. And I want to close just reading something that I read. Yeah. Just to say that humans are fundamentally social creatures and belonging is a deep-seated need. The desire to fit in arises from a desire for acceptance, validation, and connection with others, which can boost confidence and ease social interactions. So, however, it's crucial to remember that true belonging doesn't necessitate sacrificing your values or individuality. So with that one, fitting in. This is manhood. Johanse, Lurbz, Tsarius. Thank you.
Now, Johan said this is a different look. It's a business casual wear. So you see we have a sports jacket paired with a casual pants. In this case, is a tan with a suitably nice pocket square. No tie in this case. Brown shoes fine. We just did a minor adjustment on your sleeve length to make sure the cuffs of your shirt show as well, 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch. Now, this business casual look can also be upgraded to a more formal look. So you use a dark blue pants or black pants, in which case now you'll pair it with a beautiful tie matching pocket square, and the look has completely changed. So with one jacket, one pants, 2 pants, we have 2 looks. So multiple uses with a sport jacket.
Manhood, brought to you in part by Lurbz and Solomon's Bespoke.